The adoption process is a long journey, often spanning several years. For the adopted parents, its fruition is a joyous occasion. But due to the circumstances by which a child becomes available for adoption, this is actually a frightening and traumatic time. Unfortunately, the path that leads to adoption is one of profound loss. Many of these children come from institutional or foster care and may have repeatedly experienced trauma, abuse, and neglect. This in turn affects their ability to attach with their new adoptive families. Using the lens of attachment, the purpose of this research is to explore the use of virtual play, especially play therapy, to help adopted children in Pennsylvania work through these past traumas so they can form healthy attachments with their adoptive families. Many interventions today are behavioral based and revolve around the caregiver and family, but few studies focus on adopted children and their use of play, and no studies have been published that revolve around the use of virtual play to treat adopted children with trauma. In this study, 46 adopted families completed an online survey. 6 families volunteered to participate in interviews, and 3 interviews were conducted with play therapists. As far as family characteristics, 87% have 2 or more children, and of those, 67% were also adopted. In this research sample, 62% were female, 90% had been home for more than 5 years, 60% were adopted at 1 year or older, and spanned multiple types of adoption. There are many different reasons why a child is available for adoption. For children from foster care, there were high rates of abuse and neglect. Children adopted internationally were often abandoned or had some type of physical or medical issue. Children adopted domestically as infants were often affected by maternal substance use, parental mental health, or physical issues. Across the research sample, there were high rates of executive functioning problems, anxiety, anger, manipulative behavior, problems with primary and secondary relationships. 65% were on regular medication, and 55% received in-school services. These challenges often affect child attitudes and their ability to play. Most like to play with other kids, but are unable to initiate or direct play. They have lots of problems playing independently, and many struggle with imaginative play. Mythos is a video game where adopted children and children with trauma role play as a stuffed bear who's lost their home and finds themselves on a journey of self-discovery. The game will be partnered with therapy and a physical stuffed bear. The ultimate treatment goal is for the child to terminate their self-defeating acting out behaviors and accept themselves as loved and lovable within an adopted family. The game's focus is to mirror experiences often faced by adopted children and children with trauma. Role-playing as a stuffed animal allows them to project their emotions and experience the trauma journey using an outside lens. The game uses the 12-step hero quest, a common narrative technique used in role-play games, to mimic the process often used in trauma and recovery programs. To advance the game, children use their imagination, explore, make decisions, solve puzzles, collect objects, and pick up a variety of skills. Partnering with therapy throughout the game is key. Since many adopted children have missed an important stage in their cognitive development, therapists need to meet the child at whatever stage they're in. Therapists will be provided with a companion guide to help them prepare and work in concert with the game. And throughout, they can check in to see how the child is doing and provide support. Adopted children face a variety of issues that impede their ability to heal from past traumas, grow, and ultimately attach to their adopted family. A large part of the game revolves around teaching a variety of life skills and strategies. For example, when the bear suddenly finds themselves alone in a strange land, children are prompted to analyze her emotions and how she might be feeling. In another instance, children employ coping strategies to help the bear calm down in the midst of a stressful situation. Children gain points for every skill they gain and are able to revisit these strategies throughout the game as needed. Decision points in the game are based on clinical concepts. For example, when initially confronted with a stressful situation, children must decide the bear's reaction: fight, flight, freeze, or collapse. Each is based on typical reactions to stress and sends players down a different path in the game. I showed the game to 2 play therapists and an adoption social worker to determine the viability of the game within the therapeutic space. Overall reviews were enthusiastic. They appreciated the value of role play, the real-world application of skills, and the ability to tie the game to the child's story. In conclusion, while it would be fantastic if children used the game to connect the dots between the experience of the stuffed bear and their own, therapists emphasize the importance of celebrating small victories by learning a skill or the ability to connect with others. In terms of next steps, all therapists were willing to try out the game with some of the children they work with, but testing with children was not possible due to the lack of time and robust testing protocols. The next phase should consist of testing with adopted children to observe their reactions and gauge their performance. This study is one of the few to address adopted children and their use of play, and one of the first to discuss the use of virtual play to treat adopted children with trauma. Future research should discuss the impact of childhood trauma on cognitive development and discuss ways to fill in the gaps for these children.